iZombie Season 3 finale, Looking for Mr. Good Brain Part 2. This is a really great finale. It was very interesting going through it because I'm like, some of these people is like you can't tell who's going to live and who's going to die because we have quite a few new characters being introduced, and it's hard to say who was going to actually kind of make it out of the situation. And then there was the element of people who are human, like some of our human characters, possibly being turned into zombies because we have we find out the revelation like halfway through or closer to the end that everyone that gets the vaccination is actually going to become a zombie. So it was just really crazy. It was like, wow, this is kind of nuts. I didn't know where things were headed, but it was a really good episode for sure. It starts off pretty strong, and they kind of kick things off. Unfortunately, the one dude who actually makes it, he still ends up dying. He's crawling along. He's half his body is gone, and this truck is coming right at him, squishes his head, and he dies. And I was like, wow, that sucks. I thought for sure the fact that he was there meant that he was going to make it. Maybe that would be a part of how the whole zombie thing really broke out, because you had these two women who were like, holy crap, we saw a person who was halved crawling. And I thought that would be a part of the story and how the news got out. It was like, nope, he actually gets killed off and early on in the episode. And I was like, wow, that really sucks. I thought he was going to make it. But we have a lot of elements that finally start to come together. And ultimately, it is Fillmore Graves. And it's definitely the woman, Carrie. It was pretty much all her. She was the one who set things off with the dog. And, it turns out Chase, oddly enough, was actually totally innocent. He's very harsh about stuff. And they show that again in this episode, just like when he first came in. And, he tends to have this thing where people don't do what he says, or he gets mad at him and he's just like, boom, you're a zombie, I know I can shoot you now. This seems to be like his go-to move. But he's actually innocent. That was not something that he wanted to do. And I love the way it all played out, because we have Clive, finding out this information. Liv ends up having a vision where she knows exactly what happened, to Miss Cups, and it's like, or Caddy Cups. And it's like, that's why she died, because she was at the house, she looked through the window, she saw the girls eating the brain, and then it's like, oh, I need to take off because this is insane. Unfortunately, Carrie's daughter hits her in the head, and then she gets finished off, and they try to, pin it on Chase Graves because she was kind of the second in command, and she would have taken over, and they would have gone, things would have gone off without a hitch. So it was very cool the way that everything played out, where they get the information, they try to sneak into Chase's house, and of course that screws up because Liv falls into the pool. And so Chase ends up learning a bit of extra information from them, and then he's like, okay, well, it's certainly not me. And so he finds out everything he needs from that interaction. And I love that whole scene, because that was one of those moments where I thought for sure he was going to die. Because when it was just her, it was like, okay, he could take her on. Even if his gun isn't together, like he was holding, like what he was holding I believe was like the pin. It looked like an extended pin, it didn't look like an actual pin in a gun, but it looked like he was holding like one of the pins for the gun. And I was like, okay, well that's like, it seemed like it was this long. So I was like, okay, well if that's the case, then he could just jam it in her brain and she's dead. So whatever he had there, because I'm not that familiar with guns, and pins are normally like this big, so I know it wasn't exactly just the pin by itself. But I was like, okay, he could take her on because he's holding this thing. He could just reach over and jam it in her head, and he's good to go. But then he calls security, and I was like, okay, maybe this won't work in his favor simply because she could have a gun. She gets busted, and he kind of rattles it all off. He's like, you killed Wally, you killed his mother, and you killed his uncle. You set all this stuff off. You killed my sister-in-law because she didn't want to go with Plan B. She didn't want to kill off all these people. But you did, and that's why you did that. And you got the dog to set off this virus to kill people, kill people off as well, which is at least what we thought at the time. It turns out even that plan wasn't to kill people and get more brains. It was actually just to make more zombies, so that zombies outnumber the humans. So he's rattling through his story and everything, and it's like, you killed Wally, you killed his family, you killed my sister-in-law, and all this other stuff. And he calls in the security details, like, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. The security detail comes in, and I already knew as soon as they walked in and they stopped, I was like, oh man, I think he's gone. And I was like, it's about to turn on him for sure. And, he's like, take her away, and they don't. And they kind of just look at him, and it's like, you chose a bad day to clean your Glock. And I love how the scene played out, because I was like, man, they aren't going to kill him right here. It didn't seem like it. Like, maybe he'll fight, but I was like, maybe it'll last a little bit. But it was just like, nope, he had the gun behind him the whole time because he's not an idiot. And he pulls that gun out and just went boom, 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 and took all three of them down. And I was like, how is this gonna go? Like, is he gonna do the monologue thing where he talks to her like, I got you and all this stuff? And he was like, I know what I'm gonna do with you. And she talks and it's just like he just didn't give a crap. It's like, boom, she's dead. And I was like, wow, that was an interesting way to do that. Everything said and done all in this one scene. And he kind of gets, you know, his revenge a little bit. Like, they both Clive and Chase technically have revenge because he lost his sister-in-law because of her. And he's really big on like the zombie community. Like, he doesn't really like losing zombies, so that probably had a huge impact on him, especially as the leader now. And of course, you know, Clive, from the beginning of the season, that's been like his whole thing, is to find out who did this to this young boy and his mother. So he at least learns who called out the hit, because that was another thing where they do reference the fact that it may not have necessarily been her, which I bet it won't be. And when we go into season 4, I bet there will be someone else who actually pulled the trigger, and we'll find that out. And technically, we only saw 4 people get killed. I mean, Chase had this little encounter. He kills 3 guards and her, and they talk about the fact that, you know, like, oh, there's this faction, and that's why she had someone kill, you know, that guy and then Wally and his mother. So that was, you know, that was just 4 people. There have to be those people still within Fillmore Graves. So I feel like we're still going to get that information in the next season, where we find out that whoever ended up killing Wally and his family will still be out there. Like, she was the one that ordered it, so that's a bit of help for Clive. But I still think he'll get that ultimate chance to actually kill the person that he's, you know, wanted revenge on for so long. So I feel like that might come up in the next season. It's an easy way to do it, to leave that sort of ambiguous, you know, notion out there. And it makes sense that she wouldn't be the one to do it herself, because she just doesn't, like, she was like this whole big mastermind. She doesn't seem like the type of person that will pull the trigger. So it makes it really easy to have that story, you know, seemingly completed, and then they can just pull on it and be like, nope, there's still another little string there, and then we have it again for season 4, and Clive can actually have his revenge. So that's my theory, that we will not see the conclusion to that story until next season. But it was still really good. It was a nice moment for Clive to have some sense of closure, at least a little bit, knowing who's responsible, even if it wasn't truly her that pulled the trigger. But I think he'll get that ultimate revenge next season. So they move on from there to this ultimate grand plan about the flu and how people are turning into zombies and stuff. And I thought it was great. They have Liv go to the newscaster. He was in this episode a lot, and every time I see him, I mentioned this before, but because of him being a part of Fairly Odd Parents, every time I see him, I just smile. Like, it just makes me laugh every time. Like, even when he's not really doing anything, I just laugh, because I'm like, all I think of is Fairly Odd Parents, because he's like 2 different characters in that show. So it makes me laugh. So he's in this a bunch, and then Liv actually goes to him and is like, you know, you're turning into a zombie. He took it pretty well, and so did like everyone that saw the news report, because I was like, everyone believes this like instantaneously. But I guess with the whole news reports, and there were already a ton of people that believed it anyway, because it's like, I found these tubes in the, you know, in the trash, people that look this way. The report, of course, came out where it's like people look, you know, exactly like this. So I guess it kind of makes sense, because it has been building up pretty much the entire season that zombies could exist. But everyone seemed to take it as like 100% fact, and it was just like, I guess that's interesting. But I don't know, I was like, wow, everybody freaked out instantly, because I would have been like, is that true? Is that real? I don't know if I would have believed it or not, but knowing me, I probably would have been cautious enough to have been like, nope, I'll see what happens. If it's true, then that sucks, I'm not getting this vaccine. And if it's not true, I'll just come back tomorrow. You know, I can wait a little longer. But it was very interesting. You know, it gets to the end, and then of course Chase comes in. He has them play, you know, this video, and they show his plan and how it starts to play out. And it's pretty much exactly what I thought. You know, it's like everyone remained calm, and naturally people instantaneously go for the guns. It's like, zombies, we gotta freak out and kill them. So people are breaking in, and it starts off okay. You know, we have that sort of bond. Well, really, it only shows the zombies for a long time, outside of our couple of human characters. But we have mostly, you know, all our zombie characters doing their thing. We have Dale, who takes the vaccine just, you know, at the last minute, so she becomes a zombie, and Clive and her are back together. So they have to figure out, you know, how to keep that going. And it goes through, and, you know, we see Major actually healing people who actually were sick with the flu, who were dying. So they have, you know, now become zombies as well. And it's like, all right, well, we have this plan. We're going to get brains from across the country that are being donated to us, and that's how we're going to ration them out to the zombie populace within the city. And everything seems to be going fine, and then they get to that portion where they're handing out brains. We see Donnie show up, so he's like, hey, check this out, and they do like the little little samples of the blue brain bits. So of course the business is booming again because everyone was told by Chase not to go to, to their business anymore. So Blaine and Donnie are doing great again. And it gets to the people just start coming around the corner with their weapons, and they want to kill zombies. It was just automatic. It's, like you've seen a million times especially if you're a comic reader, but you got like, sort of an X-Men sort of thing. You got the humans versus the mutants. And that was pretty much it. And they were like, we'll shoot one above their heads. That didn't work. And they just had to start laying people out. And it's like, man, I'm very interested to see how that's going to affect the characters in the next season. So I thought that was interesting. They, they just touched on it a little bit. And then we get like our final sequence where Ravi has hopefully made the actual vaccine for zombieism. And he has it tested on himself by having Liv actually scratch him. And they had a great moment where he's like, this is where it all began. I cut you in brains and this and that. And, this is where we are now. So he eats the little cube and she tested on him. I would assume based on the way they did the little joke where, she's like, don't be a dick and stuff, that it works. But we don't officially know that just yet. So we'll have to wait and see because, just like with the vaccine, it took a couple hours. It was a lot faster than I thought. I didn't think anyone would actually know what was happening, but then when the woman was doing the guy's makeup, she was like, oh, what's with the gray streak? I was like, oh, that was really fast because he got it done like in the morning, and then they're doing like the night news, and he already had like a gray streak and he was hungry for brains. I didn't think it was going to work that fast. I thought it took a bit of time, so I was very surprised at how fast it actually took place. So I'm sure, when we get the premiere for the next season, they'll know whether or not it works, and if it does, then that'll kind of keep that war going where it's, humans versus zombies, and I'm curious how that's going to play out. But very good episode. Major's a zombie again. I figured that was going to happen at some point. I just wasn't 100% sure. I was like, I think it could happen. It makes sense that it would. And then things just got really, really bad. And it's like, yeah, that makes perfect sense for him. He's almost completely detached from mankind. Like, they already hate him anyway because everyone assumes. Which is another thing. With a lot of stuff being out there now, like zombies exist, there's a lot of news that could be like, hey, Chaos Killer, this is exactly why that was happening. And he could actually kind of express some of that information. So I'm curious how some of the elements of the series are going to play out in the next season as well. Just like with the vaccine or, the flat-out cure, we still don't know what happened with that. Someone stole that, and it's just gone. We still don't know who in the world took the cure. We don't know what's going to happen with, this vaccination. We don't know if they can still make another set of cures because, they don't have tainted utopium. But now that they're zombies, it's not really something they have to hide. It could be like, hey, this was a cure that I've made before, so hey, there's that sort of thing. And much like the patent that Ravi mentioned, he could technically still do that if he wanted to, but, or maybe not, I guess, because it's based off of technically like Supermax and all that stuff. But very interesting. I'm very excited to see how some of those elements that have, they've been forced to keep hidden for so long, they can just tell people now, like, hey, we could use a bunch of help because there is a cure. I've done it before. Also, it was stolen, so it's out there somewhere, but we can make another one. So that sort of information can easily be put out there now without people thinking they're crazy. So very excited for how that's going to change in the next season. But I thought this was a really good finale. Very excited for, I thought this was going to be the season with like, zombies versus humans. I really think next season is definitely where that starts because it already has, based off of that little clip they had. It's already started, like true zombie versus humans, and that should be crazy next season. But I'm very excited to see it. Of course, would love to know what you guys thought about this finale, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, at least favorite parts. And of course, I want to know what theories you guys have for next season, how things are going to play out. I would assume Dale is going to become one of the regular cast members because she's been turned into a zombie, and her relationship with Clive is, healing because he, Clive told her everything, like, this is what happened before with Major. This is what you got to do to, unfortunately, stop the zombie apocalypse that ultimately ends up happening anyway. Just, it's not as tragic as a dude just goes nuts in a prison and starts eating brains. So I would assume that she's going to be a part of the main cast. And like I said, there's a lot of information that they can now just put out there because everyone knows about zombies. Zombies versus humans is truly going to be a big portion of the next season. So we'd love to know your theories on how things are going to play out, what you guys want to see in general for next season. And like I said, we'd love to know what you guys thought about this finale. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.